All right, very good. Well, folks, thank you for joining us. This is the Pittsburgh Change Management Professionals monthly meeting. This is our second. We formed the group, gosh, we formed a few months ago, and we've been working on what the group would be over that period of time. We have a number of volunteer leaders who've come together in the Pittsburgh area who all have a passion for change management and for the positive impact it can have on people and the organizations they work for. We are looking to build this community. We intend for it to be basically a permanent presence, both in Pittsburgh to help those who are trying to create or lead change in their organizations or their communities. And so we're looking for you to stay involved. We're looking for you to join up. We're pretty, I would say, unstructured at the moment. We have a LinkedIn group you can go and visit, and we have our website, pitcmp.org, that you can go and visit. We are still working on monthly events. We're kind of using that to anchor the group to make sure there is something for people to come to engage in and to see each month. Our intent is also to make sure that we have a lot of active dialogue and collaboration and network building over time as well. So this is early days. As I said, this is our second official monthly event. We're looking forward to you being part of this. We're looking forward to your questions and your suggestions, both in this event and over time. And gosh, I think with that, if you go to the website, you can sort of see the other founding members of our group. Please do reach out to any of us if you do have questions or suggestions about the group. If you would like to help and get engaged, if you'd like to volunteer, then as I say, please let one of us know. You can put input in the chat here in Zoom if you've got anything on your mind right now. And at the end of this event, I will tell you what else we have coming up over the next couple of months. But with that, I'd like to throw to Jeff, one of our other founding members, who will introduce our speaker and facilitator for this session. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Matt. I know a lot of you have just joined us, so please, I'm going to urge you again to turn on your cameras, turn off your speakers. Always difficult for a speaker to speak when he's just speaking to blank squares. So please don't be shy, turn on your cameras. And it's my privilege. I'm Jeff Tobe, by the way. I'm a professional speaker and author. And I'm proud to say that our speaker today has been my friend for decades. We won't say how long, Richard. Richard Hadden is an author and workplace expert who has for more than 25 years studied the connection between people, practices, and profit performance. An MBA graduate from the University of North Florida, Richard led teams in banking, telecommunications, and software design before teaching management and economics at his undergraduate alma mater, Jacksonville University. He is a 9th generation Floridian. Wow, I don't imagine there's a lot of those. But anyway, he's been speaking since he was 17 months old, but professionally for the last 25 years. In that time, he's spoken to more than 1,000 audiences on 5 continents and now in 4 video platforms. His latest book, Contented Cows Still Give Better Milk. And hold on, I even have my own personalized autograph copy right here. This book makes the business case for the role of leadership in employee engagement and organizational results. Today, Richard will talk with us about how organizations are meeting the challenges presented by a remote and hybrid workforce. Everybody, please join me silently, but join me in welcoming Richard Hadden. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And hey, great to see everybody. And I really do. I see a lot of you out there. Wow. And in a few minutes, I'm going to share my screen. Am I able to do that? Yeah, Jeff. Okay, great. Good. Yeah. So let's actually just go to that, and we'll start from there. And so I guess you know how to make it. If you want to see my face at some point, you can do that. But we'll have the slides up there as well. Well, I don't have to tell you what has changed in the workplace between the 2 holidays of Groundhog Day and Columbus Day 2020. I mean, we've all been living it for more than 7 months now. We went from, I guess, this disruption stage in March. And some people, some organizations are still stuck there. But I think most of us have been forced to move into the transformation stage to one degree or another. And I think the degree to which organizations have developed into the transformation stage will have a lot to do with how well they perform. The blissful naivete of mid-March of this year. Remember those days? there were people saying that this could go on for several weeks before we snap back to the convenient life that we had been griping about just a few weeks before that. But, it wasn't just us laymen who felt that way. Dr. Nicholas Christakis, a professor of social and natural science at Yale, predicted that the COVID-19 pandemic, now this is a smart guy, he predicted that the COVID-19 pandemic could change our daily routines for a minimum of 3 weeks. And, said Dr. Christakis, it could go on for as long as 3 months. Well, to be fair to Dr. Christakis, nobody else knew either. And he has provided some very valuable and accurate insight, not only into the disease, but into the societal implications of the pandemic. So he deserves a lot of credit. But, I think we were all caught by surprise on this one. And suddenly, almost overnight, we were thrust into a situation that few had ever planned on, and without any time to prepare or transition. And it was essentially, your office building is burned to the ground. Get ready to work from home. And, there are a lot of divergent views about this whole pandemic, medically, sociologically, politically. But I think there's one thing we can all agree on. And how many of us can relate to this sign? So, I don't think we'd get a lot of disagreement around the notion that probably more has changed in the last 7 months than in the previous 7 years. And while I've never really seen myself as a specialist in change management like you are, but more as a specialist in employee engagement, because the world of employee engagement has changed irreversibly since March, I guess what I have to say has a lot to do with change. So, I've spent a lot of the last 6 months trying to learn what employers are doing as they respond to this huge change to a work from home model, and how they continue to adapt to what now appears to be maybe a long-term, we might even say permanent model, and that is the hybrid remote workplace, where people are both working from home, working in the on-site, and some combination thereabout. Now, Jeff told you a little bit about, in introducing me, I've written a few books with my business partner and co-author, Bill Catlette. And the first book that we wrote was entitled Contented Cows Give Better Milk. And I have to tell you from the very beginning, the book has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with cows. We are not, and I'm serious about this, we're not suggesting that your people should be compared to cows. What we are saying is that in the same way that contented cows do give better milk, and that must be true. It's been on the carnation milk cans for almost a century. But because, as I said, because contented cows do give better milk, we're just simply using that as a metaphor. So, and we use the phrase contented cows with the express written consent of the Nestle Corporation, which now owns Carnation, and which requires me to say this in every presentation. But that's really all we're saying is contented cows give better milk. Satisfied employees, engaged employees give better performances. And so this book actually came out in 1998. So a few years ago, the publisher asked us to refresh it a little bit. So we really wrote it again from scratch, using a whole new set of examples. But that really is what we're saying, is that, you take care of your employees will take care of your customers will take care of the bottom line. So then how do you discuss this when so much has changed? Again, you're in the business of managing and leading change processes throughout all of your organizations. I would suspect that the change that you've seen since we first heard the words COVID or coronavirus has been more than you had ever seen in the same period of time in the past. So let me just kind of share with you my view of change, because I do talk with groups about change, mainly organizational change and things that are happening in the workplace. And the way I look at it, there are kind of 4 dynamics going on. You have the change, but then change leads to uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to fear, and fear leads to preoccupation. And the problem is that preoccupation and engagement are mutually exclusive. You can't be preoccupied with something that's going on if you're worried about it, preoccupied about it, and be engaged in in the work of the organization. And so there is one thing that as leaders, as managers, as change managers in organizations, there's one of these areas on this scale, on this model, that I think we have more control over than anything else, and that is the uncertainty element. And of course, the best way to minimize uncertainty is to maximize communication and information. And so my advice to those who are leading change is, especially this huge change that we've all seen in the last few months, is to really communicate more than we ever have before to make sure that we can minimize that uncertainty and improve the engagement. So one of the big things that has come out of all of the studies that have been done by so many organizations and consulting organizations has been this idea of social connectivity. The Boston Consulting Group said that the most surprising thing in their study of the remote and hybrid workplace since March of this year has been the outsized impact that social connectivity has on productivity. And in their study, employees who reported satisfaction with social connectivity with their colleagues were 2 to 3 times more likely to have maintained or improved their productivity on collaborative tasks than those who are dissatisfied with their connections. I saw a real, I guess I got a real lesson in this a few weeks ago. I was speaking for a large hospital, or actually a small hospital, in a large room in the rural part of Midwest United States. This was a company, a hospital company. They have a hospital, but they also have some assisted living facilities and a number of clinics, outpatient and rehab clinics. These folks had not seen each other since February or March. They worked in disparate locations within a couple of county area, but they were accustomed to getting together in meetings from time to time. They had not seen each other in 7 months. When I was there 2 or 3 weeks ago was the first opportunity they'd had to do that. And there they were. And one guy got up during the introductions, this great big burly guy in his 50s, and he was in tears saying, I had no idea that it was going to be as kind of impactful seeing all of you here for the first time in these months. So I think we really have to pay attention to, again, how social connectivity plays into all this, and it may be more than we had seen in the past. I saw another example of this with a company, a company called Backblaze, and they were trying virtual happy hours, and that wasn't doing it for their people. But, you know, they had a lot of employees with young kids at home. What they did was they hired a children's party organizer who wasn't getting a lot of business at the time, and so they had great rates. And they organized a kids' story time. They did a story time with Elsa from Frozen. They did a Star Wars themed story time. The kids loved it, and the parents said, "Wow, thank you." This was early in the pandemic, and a lot of their employees were just kind of wondering what to do to keep the lid on at home. So this was just one example. And my advice would be to try whatever works in your organization. But the point of social connectivity is this: there's real value in building community in your organization. And that's because, you know, it's relatively easy, and it's getting easier all the time, to leave an organization. It's altogether another matter to leave a community. So social connectivity is a big part of this. Let's look at some other things. Let me share the screen again. There we go.
Richard.
Yes.
We have a connection, a question in here in the chat, okay, from Sonal. Does social connectivity imply interpersonal relationships outside of work, or non-work related affinity groups, or both? Or is there another way of helping people understand what do we mean?
Yeah. It really is essentially the social connection at work. It's not so much dependent on people having friendly and social connections outside of work, although that certainly is part of what they can do. But the social connectivity that we're reading about is primarily that kind of non-work related, but personal related, that supports the work relationship at work. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Any others at the moment? Okay, so let's look at a couple of other things with this. So another big area had to do, oh, I know what, yeah. just in terms of one idea around social connectivity, an organization who starts all of their meetings on Monday, their Monday morning meetings, with just a simple question. And they ask people to think about it throughout the week, and then they ask them for their answer the following week. And one example that I saw in a meeting that I sat through with them was this. They said, tell us something you learned from a grandparent. It really got people thinking in ways that they had not been thinking before. The next thing that we know that we talk about is flexibility. You know, people in the workplace love flexibility. They love options. And today, I think people are asking for more options than ever before. And the consensus is that up to a point, the more options we can make available to people in terms of how they work, the better, provided we have clear goals for the results that are expected of them. The next thing has to do with collaboration skills and working from home, especially working from home and some people working in the office. That puts a real challenge on people's collaboration skills. And yet most thought workers, which are the bulk of the people who are working from home, really depend and rely heavily on collaboration and the value of collaboration. So one example at a company called CleverTech, they realized that their collaboration results took a real hit when people started working from home. So they simply set up a competition using video games that simulate collaborative environments and gave them practice solving problems as a group. The final thing that we know in terms of what matters most is that, you know, people can't be very productive if they're sick or overstressed. And so all indications are that focusing on well-being and mental health pay huge dividends. So, you know, after talking with a lot of people and really anybody who would talk with me and observing some things, I have been out working and speaking with organizations in the last 3 months or so. I've really been trying to find out what is it that people are doing. And in some ways, I agree a little bit with what Laszlo Bock has recently said. Laszlo Bock, if you're not familiar with him, was the senior VP of people operations at Google. Now he is the founder, has his own thing, a company called Humu. But he said, you know, I haven't really seen anything tremendously creative or innovative. He said, we moved from the adrenaline phase to the real estate phase. You know, maybe we don't need that office anymore, to the self-congratulatory phase, you know, oh, we have a return plan. But I got to say, I haven't seen a lot that's super innovative at the organization level, but I have seen some pretty clever, pretty innovative things. At least people are trying at the individual leader level. And that's really kind of what I want to talk with you about, some of the things that I've seen. Because I firmly believe that while the virus has put distance between us, the job of the leader is to bring people together. Any idea who said that? Well, it was me, but I don't want to dwell on that. What I have seen at the group level, I've seen in so many places, just some examples. Let me just throw this out. So, but it really does have to do with teaching leaders the importance of the human connection. One thing that I've seen, a CEO sending out a video just so people can watch it, you know, when it's a good time for them, not interrupting them. So they put together a 5-minute video. It doesn't have to be super produced. It can be on your iPhone, if, you know, the CEO just saying, hey, here's what's going on. You guys out there working from home, you're always on our mind. We want to make sure that you're doing okay and to make sure the business is doing okay, so we'll all stay okay. Another idea is to get some other senior manager, maybe who isn't the CEO. Maybe the CEO is thought of as being pretty outgoing and gregarious. Get somebody who's not very outgoing and gregarious and have them make a video that people can watch on their own time. One of some of the best advice that I heard, I think we really have to look at applying this, said to stop trying to equate virtual with in-person interaction. They're just not the same. Accept it. Nobody that I know of has yet figured out how to make it the same. The Argentine psychologist, Dr. Tomás Chamorro Premuzic, he's the author, you're going to love the name of this book. His latest book is called Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders? Anyway, he wrote a few weeks ago in Fast Company, he said, you know, it's not possible to simply erase our evolutionary programming to replace millions of years of in-person interaction with virtual communications. And the way he put it is, he says, virtual contact is still seen by most people as a cheap substitute for the real thing. Well, I agree with that. And I liken it to fat-free mayonnaise. Can you relate to that? I mean, fat-free mayonnaise, in a pinch, it'll make the sandwich go down faster, but it's just missing something. And in so many ways, those virtual interactions are missing something. And yet we have to do what we can do, because this is going to be with us for a while. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. So let's not worry about what we can't do. Let's talk about what we can do. Another example, in a company called Bimbo Bakeries, that is the real name of the company. I'm sorry, I didn't make up the name. It was originally a Mexican company, and the word bimbo doesn't mean anything in Spanish. It certainly doesn't mean what it means in English. So it's a pretty large bakery distribution company. The people in their administrative offices are working in a hybrid environment. And they found that people who were working at home were just not getting in as much of the scoop as what was going in the audience, in the office. And so a woman named Marlene Sidhu, who's one of the vice presidents there, she noted that, and she would go around with an old style notebook and just write comments down that she heard during conversations with permission, and then share those with people whom she was meeting with who were working from home. She has people who were hired after COVID started. And so they have people who've never even met each other. And so she suggested something called a journey box, where people could place objects from their home that explain their interests, their life, their career journey, and share those in video calls. There's a fellow I know of named Trent Koserek. He's the CEO of a software company called Airship. He runs a hybrid environment. And he made a really interesting point. He said, if everyone is remote, if one person is remote, everyone is remote. In his company, he has people who are always in the office, some who are almost always at home, and he has people who move back and forth. And he noted that in their virtual meetings, the people who were working from home were far less engaged in the meetings, not only visually, but in terms of conversation, than those who were working in the office. And they're sitting in the same room in a conference room, socially distanced, but all in the same room. So he decided to level the playing field. And from time to time, he will hold meetings with everyone on Zoom, even people who are in the office and could come together in a conference room. He said that has caused the engagement level in those meetings to be equalized. Here's another idea. I have a good friend named Jose who lives in Madrid, Spain. He is a manager in an advertising agency. Jose and I speak just about every week for an hour via Skype. I help him with his English. He helps me with my Spanish. He has a bigger job than I do. But in his company, I don't know if you know, in Madrid, they've really been hit pretty hard, and now they've got another pretty heavy spike coming back. They're not working in the office, and yet these people are Spanish, and their culture is very much built on social interaction. And so what he does is he conducts weekly one-on-one meetings with his team at any of dozens of outdoor coffee bar terraces throughout the city. They're open. You can go outside. You can have coffee. You can have these amazing churro things that they have and that they dip in chocolate. This is a picture not of Jose. This is a stock picture. This is of two managers doing similar, really kind of the same thing. They're meeting outside with masks, socially distant, but at least it's not through a computer all the time. Occasionally they get to meet. Jose gets on his motor scooter, drives to a place near the team members' home so they are not inconvenienced. They sit outside 2 meters apart, not 6 feet. They have strong coffee and, like I said, these amazing churro things that they have in Madrid. And Jose says, you don't have to. This is optional. There's no stigma. He has a couple of employees who don't feel comfortable doing that. That's absolutely fine. We'll continue to meet virtually. But Jose does buy the coffee and churros. So there's a real advantage to that. So, I mean, as you can see, this is a very, very different workplace today than what we have had going back years and years and years. A lot has changed. But let's be clear, a lot of things have not changed. For the last 22 years or so, the premise of almost every presentation that I have made has essentially been the same as the one that applies to this presentation, and that is this. that creating a focused, engaged, and capably led workforce is one of the best things any organization can do for its bottom line. And nothing has happened over the last 7 months to change the fundamentals of what people need at work. So what are some of those things that people need? Well, based on the work that we've done, we know that people at work need mission clarity, they need feedback, safety, and that has grown in importance in the last 7 months. People need to understand how their work matters. People thrive with recognition. They need development. They need development. And oh, by the way, our organizations need them to develop. And people need a sense of belonging. But back to what Laszlo Bock was talking about, the bar's pretty low right now in terms of what companies have been doing. And it won't take much at this point to stand out. In fact, most companies, according to Laszlo, have done little more than kind of lift and shift their office-centric practices into video conferencing. And we got to do better. We've got to do better than that. So what I hope you'll take from this today, I want to share with you a few more specific ideas that I have seen in talking with leaders in organizations and those who are practicing some of the things necessary and required during this time. Not so much to do exactly what I'm suggesting that they're doing, but to use these ideas to maybe spur your thinking. How can we accomplish the same objectives in a way, knowing that we have some people who are working from home or working from elsewhere, as it's being called, because they're not necessarily at home, but people working not in the collective office environment. And then we have people who are working on site. For a while, companies were doing these virtual happy hours. That's fine. It's not everybody's thing. That's fine. But after a while, that wasn't quite as cutting edge as maybe some people think. I was in a group talking last week, and somebody said, "Oh, that is so April," and I think they're right. I think it's not clear that everybody really wanted to see their coworkers that bad, if it meant that they had to see them in various stages of sobriety and undress, because this is kind of what it devolved into in some ways. But it doesn't have to do that. One of the things that I'm pretty well convinced of is that there are some things that are not coming back. Some things are irrevocably changed based on what has happened since about the 1st of March. But I am also very convinced that some things are coming back. And one thing that is coming back, I believe, is the war for talent. And how you handle the workplace of the present and the future will have everything to do with productivity and engagement of your organization now and recruitment in the future. So the war for talent, I think, is coming back. We've all seen it. Many of us were there after 9/11. We were there after the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011 for some of us, right? And we always saw that the economy came back, that unemployment went back down, and it became an employee's market in every case. This has hit the economy harder than anything in any of our lifetimes. I still believe the war for talent is coming back. We're already seeing it in some areas. And so I think we really have to be concerned about how do we go through this change and yet make sure that we remain stable in saying that, and I'm not going to use the trite phrase, our employees are most valuable. You know how to fill that statement in. But to know that if you are at all talent reliant, that you must give consideration to the kind of environment that you create for people to do their very best work. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was speaking for a hotel company at their flagship property. And when I got there, and this is a company that said, yeah, our employees are our most valuable asset. And this is what I saw in the parking lot when I got there. I didn't make that. I didn't Google image that. I didn't do that in Photoshop. That's the sign that was in the parking lot. At the same time, in your state, for those of you who are in Pennsylvania, I was at the Marriott in Center City, Philadelphia last summer, and I couldn't help but notice the employee entrance right there on Market Street in Center City, Philadelphia. Let me just ask you, which of these two do you think is going to be able to attract and retain the best talent between those two? So let's be clear that creating a great place to work and creating an employee engagement environment is still absolutely critical. And here's the thing, and this is so important. COVID is not going to be with us forever. But let's be really clear. The rabbit is out of the hat when it comes to working from home. People have been to the promised land. They have been over the river, however you want to say it. People have experienced it. And there are many people who are saying, I kind of like this. And so I firmly believe that even if COVID were to go away today, there would be many people who would still be saying, yeah, I think I'm gonna hang out and get my work done from home. There's all kind of research that shows that's exactly what's going to happen. This is from a company called Buffer Angel List, and I love this. This is the number. It says 98% of the people they surveyed said, yeah, we'd like to have the opportunity after COVID is done to still work from home, at least from time to time. There's only 2% who said no, they wouldn't want to. It looks like a blueberry bagel with just a tiny little piece. So small a piece cut out of it that somebody hoped nobody would notice that they took it out of there. I mean, it's astounding what people are saying, that, yeah, they do kind of like this idea of working from home from time to time. So rather than go through a whole bunch of numbers and everything, let me direct you to a report from Buffer Angel List. It's the 2020 State of Remote Work. And you can go to their website, buffer.com, or you can just grab the image of that QR code. And of course, if we're recording this, I think you'll be able to have that, and you should be able to do it. It's a really fascinating study, one of the best things that I've seen. So let me just direct you to that if that is of value to you. But here's the thing that we have to really consider. Now, the option to work from home at least part of the time, COVID or no COVID, becomes a competitive distinction in the war for talent. Because gone are the days when we're going to be able to call those shots. Because when it becomes an employee's market again, and mark my words, it will be, there are going to be people who are going to say, yep, I'm looking at several options. And yeah, I might go to work for this company. I might sell my talent to this company. I might sell my talent to that company. Now the option to work at home for many people will become a competitive distinction. So we can't just say, yeah, once everything is over, we're going to have everybody coming back to the office. Even today, we're hearing managers who are saying, well, unless you have some legitimate reason for working from home, like you have an underlying condition or you live with someone who does, then we were going to want you to come back to the office. And some people are saying, no, thank you. I think I'll just opt out of that for right now. And if they don't have the option to work in that way for your company, perhaps they'll take their act somewhere else. So people have said, all right, Richard, so enough of this. What do we have to do? Well, it's really pretty simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but you have to care about your people. And if you want to know, okay, so what are people actually doing? I'm telling you, they're caring about their people. I've told you a little bit about what that looks like, and I'll tell you some more, but let's don't make it any more complicated than it has to be. The things that they are doing that I've shared with you, and I'll share some more with you in a minute, kind of flow naturally from the fact that they simply care about their people. And if your organization cares about its people, you'll do the right thing. So, it's really not so much about your work from home policy or your hybrid remote policy. It is about this, that we know that people reserve their best effort for a leader who cares about them as a person. Let me just, for those of you who might be in positions of kind of formulating policy with respect to working remotely, this hybrid remote policy, let me tell you, at your retirement party in 20 years or whenever that happens, nobody is going to say, oh, we sure are going to miss you. You created the world's best work from home policy. But what they might say is, you helped create a culture that enabled people to do great, fulfilling, pride-filled work. And yeah, we did that in a hybrid remote workplace, because that's how it's been since way back in 2020. And I'll tell you now, when you're looking for talent, I can guarantee you, nobody's going to be wondering, oh, what are the elements of their clear and concise, highly compliant work from home policy with a robust hybrid element that protects the company from liability? Nobody's going to be looking for that. What will get their attention is, what's the leadership like? Do they care about their people? Do they make it so I can do good work, whether I'm working from home or in the office, or some of each? A few weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast, and I'm sorry to say I don't even remember what podcast it was. I was walking two dogs in 99-degree weather here in Florida, so I didn't stop to write it down. But someone who was being interviewed on the podcast about distance working made such an important but simple point. She said, I'm convinced that if you care about me as a person, I can be pretty much engaged at any distance. And yes, the quote was a random person being interviewed on a podcast whose name I can't remember. But here's another example, a real example. Last month we had Labor Day. Always happens on a Monday, right? The Thursday before Labor Day, Google told every one of their employees, hey, take tomorrow off. The Friday before Labor Day, make it a 4-day weekend. Consider it a collective well-being holiday. Now, I don't know whose idea it was, but it was someone trying to say, you know what? This is Google. We're doing okay. In large part, thanks to you. So thank you. You're special. Google will survive a 4-day weekend. Now, compare that with a company who invited me to sit in on a discussion with their senior leadership team as they talked about retransitioning from a COVID-induced 100% remote workforce to a hybrid and what that would look like. Now, this is back in June, so like forever ago, right, in COVID terms. One VP said, I'm seeing a lot of companies are going to this kind of hybrid thing, like maybe 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. And the employee picks which 2 days they work at home. And somebody in the room piped up and said, I like that, but hey, those 2 days, they can't be Friday or Monday because we know how that would go. And I was so proud that the head of HR, I was so proud of her. She stood up, she said, wait a minute. We say we trust our people. Do we trust them or not? So I followed back up with them, and I'll tell you what they're doing. They're doing a 3-day in the office, 2-day at home plan, and people decide which days they work where, and nobody has abused it. So I think we just have to have more communication, more trusting. Here's a couple of real quick ideas. I'm just going to give you bang, bang, bang on some things. First of all, we got to create more opportunities for one-on-one time with each person. That's going to be one of the best ways to manage this change. More communication, more one-on-one time with everyone. So some ways of doing that. I've seen CEOs who set up virtual office hours. Hey, on Tuesday from 2 to 4, I'm going to be in my Zoom office. You come in and see me. It may be a private meeting, or there may be others here in the room here with us. Let's just have a discussion. And people are saying they're having opportunities to have conversations with their CEO that they would never have had before. I've also seen the CEO just show up at virtual team meetings. So a virtual group is having a meeting. The CEO wouldn't ordinarily just pop into their meeting if they were meeting physically in the office, but he or she can do that in this setting. But here's the thing, don't just show up and say, hello, here I am, you lucky people, you get to see me. Thank them for something specific. And you don't have to be the CEO to do that, okay? Let's talk real quickly about performance management. We're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon, but I do want to cover this issue, performance management. People have said to me just in the last 7 months, well, all right, Richard, so we got people working from home. How do we know if they're really working? And you see what the slide shows here. But I have to ask you this question. How did you know they were working before? So I think we have to look at, again, levels of trust, but how do we measure productivity? So a couple of questions. First of all, we have to stop policing and simply start trusting. And some people will say, oh, that's naive because we'll have people who will take advantage of the system. Yes, you will. And even if you have a very robust system for policing that and tracking that, people will still take advantage of that. Back to Laszlo Bach, he says, organizations build immense bureaucracies to control people, which is simply an admission that people can't be trusted. And if you think about it, these bureaucracies and these systems come at quite a cost. So I'm not sure we're getting our full return on that. If we think about the remote part of the workforce, and I think about an activity that's very popular at my house, and that's been looking for the remote control. I don't know about you, but we spend a lot of time at our house looking for remote control. Let me just tell you, when it comes to the remote workforce, there is no control. The sooner that we learn that we have no control, but we have influence, the better that's going to be. There's no such thing as a distance supervisor. A distance leader, yes, not a distance supervisor. You know, micromanagement has never worked. It's certainly not going to work from a distance. So I think here's what we really have to ask. What are you looking for? What are you looking for? Are you looking for activity or results? Are you looking for attendance or output? And I think in many cases, we're going to have to look at how we measure productivity and make sure that it is valid and accurate. I mean, it's relatively easy to measure attendance and activity, but have we figured out how to measure output or results? Well, if you're looking for output and results, then you probably simply have to redesign some of, and maybe most of, your productivity metrics. Here's something else. I mean, words matter. Words matter. For example, when you talk about coming back to the office, coming back together, if that's starting to happen in phases, we got to be careful that we don't say, we have a plan to return to work, but rather something more accurate. We have a plan to return to the office. Words do matter. And part of the reason for that is now we're seeing people who work from home emerging as yet another minority group. And you know how in this society we like to segregate people into different groups. You've noticed that, right? It seems to happen naturally, but usually with very bad consequences unless we're intentional about doing it. So we've got to make sure that we don't fall into the trap of out of sight, out of mind. Because one danger that we run into is just because we see the people in the office as insiders and the people working from home as outsiders, we may give more natural development opportunities to the insiders than to the outsiders, which of course isn't fair, but that's not even the worst of it. What's really bad is if we're looking at the outsiders and we're not looking at them with the same care as we do the people working in the office, we may miss something about them that makes them more suitable for a developmental opportunity than the insider. So we're really, in that case, using the wrong filter. And we have to be careful to do that. I had a group last week and a CEO said exactly the same thing. Well, when I start looking at development opportunities and promotion opportunities, those people who don't have the commitment to come back into the office yet, now they're not going to get as much consideration. Which again, that sounds like the guy's maybe kind of a jerk, But what he's really doing is cutting off his nose to spite his face, because that's the wrong filter. That's the wrong set of criteria. That person who is working at home may, in fact, we don't know, may in fact be the better person for that position. So we have to look at things from a different perspective, a different point of view. Here's an interesting chart. This is for a company, it doesn't matter who it is, but it's a company that is working almost entirely remotely now, but before COVID, they were working almost entirely in the office, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You see these, this is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is the number of hours people are logged into their virtual private network. So this is a company where people never worked on the weekends. Now working from home, they're working on the weekends by choice, not because they have to. So we have to really prepare leaders with a remote mindset. And we have to go more beyond just tolerating remote work, but really to embrace remote work. There's a big difference. People have got to see how their work matters. We have to equip people to do their best work remotely. And sometimes this involves equipment setup. I mean, you remember the picture I showed you at the very beginning of the person sitting in the horrible hoarder kitchen there. That's probably not the best kind of a setup for working from home. We need to encourage people to have a dedicated space, to have the right equipment, to have, and here's some of the things that we need to make sure that people have, even to the extent of a wired connection, which brings a better connection, certainly for virtual meetings. Make sure they have webcams, cameras, printers. It doesn't have to be the very best, but make sure that it's stuff that works. Now, here's a nifty little tool. If you're not familiar with this, it's called the Meeting Owl, and it's great for virtual hybrid organizations where you have some people working in a conference room and then you have others working from home, because this little Meeting Owl camera has a 360-degree view on it. I saw it being used last week at the presentation where I was delivering the presentation, and it was really amazing. And I saw it from the other end as well. Just a couple of other things in closing. We know that 43% of employees don't share documents because it's simply too hard to do it. We have that information from a survey that was done by Igloo Software. And so we have to make sure that we make it easy for people to share information. Think about this. People were working together. They could just ask people questions because they were all working at the same time. Now people are working kind of whenever. And so we have to make sure that it's easy for people to get a hold of the information so they can continue to be productive. And here's a big question. And here's the thing, nobody has figured this out just yet. And that is the whole question of kids going to school. Where I live here in Jacksonville, Florida, our kids went back to school end of August, and then there were too many cases of coronavirus and they shut them down. And then they went back and now they're shutting them back down again. And so now you have workers who have made arrangements and now they're having all of their lives disrupted again. No one has figured out the best way to handle this yet. But I will tell you this. The last thing you want to do is make people choose between their kids and their careers. You make people choose, you'll be the one to lose. Don't know what the solution is, but I do know the solution is not to make people choose between their kids and their careers. Just some bang ideas here in terms of caring about your people. We need to celebrate more, help people to celebrate work anniversaries, special events, team wins. We used to do that in the office. We still need to celebrate, make sure that that happens when you're in a virtual and a remote and a hybrid world. Encourage people to thank each other. There's all kind of e-card systems that they can use to send thank yous to each other. Involve teams in a virtual charity effort. The slide you see here is for a company who is in the Washington, D.C. area, and they found out that the Smithsonian Institute was soliciting volunteers to transcribe ancient documents. Doesn't sound like much fun to me, but they loved it, and it was a great way for them to contribute to the community. Another idea, make space at the top of virtual meetings for personal chat. This is a brilliant idea. How many meetings have you been to in the first 10 or 15 minutes? People are talking, that's fine. Some people may want to be involved to that degree, and others may want to, I'll check in when the real meeting starts. So rather than starting the meeting at 10 o'clock and having 10 or 12 minutes of personal conversation, let's start the meeting at 12 minutes to 10 o'clock, have as much personal communication as we like, and then let's start the meeting at 10 o'clock. I love this one. There's a company that used to start their meetings off by saying, what's on your mind? One week, and everybody knew that was the question coming. So one week they changed it to what's on your feet? And they made everyone show their socks. So this was one of the pairs of socks that got shown. Just something as simple as special interest groups. The groups that I was speaking with last week said this is something that they have done that's been helpful. You know, and it can be any kind of groups, special interest groups, and people can join through Teams or Zoom and have conversations at designated times. This gets more to the question that was asked earlier, about social connectivity, and this would be outside of work kinds of issues. Virtual buddy system, whether it be for new employees, for existing employees, that person that we kind of went to for help when we were all co-located in the same place, now we can set that up specifically for a virtual setting. Online fitness sessions. We know that people's health is going, and their mental health, their physical health. Do what you can do to help support people's physical and mental health. Online Online fitness sessions are a great way to do that. Here's an idea that I thought was way out and too weird when I first heard it until I participated in it. And now I think it's actually a pretty good idea. And that is sometimes, not all the time, sometimes your team just kind of leave your virtual group chat open and people can just sit there working and you hear the ambient sound going on in the background. And then somebody just says, hey, Brad, let me ask you a question. And everybody hears that question, but we don't have to say, all right, Brad, I want to set up a Zoom call with you at 10:43 a.m. to ask you this question. Give that a try. See how you liked it. I sat in on one of these for about 2 hours and I found it fascinating. When it comes to virtual team building activities, I'm not even going to tell you what these are because as you can see, there are 300 and something million references to virtual team building activities if you go to Google. But from time to time, do something like that. Just something as simple as having dinner delivered to an employee's home. Boy, we all know how to use Grubhub and DoorDash now. And so those are just some ideas. So I'm going to unshare the screen and just kind of wrap up what we're talking about here. And then would love to know if there are any questions and have any discussion that we'd like. But we humans are social beings. We like to gather, whether that's in the fire, by the fire, not in the fire, by the fire or in our living rooms or in stadiums, schools, places of worship. We've always gone to work, right? That's a phrase that we've always used. Without the right connection to that combined effort, to our teammates and to the reminder of why we do our work, I think we become no more than just hired hands, puzzle pieces who never really get to see or take pride in the end product, the end process in completed form. So I think it's for this reason that in this time, this unprecedented, it is cliche, but it is unprecedented. This unprecedented time of global pandemic, those of you who are leading change in your organization, you have an enormous opportunity to help your organizations create distinction by providing guidance, safety, and inspiration that support the culture, the work, and the real pulsating humans who do the work, wherever they may be, at home, in the office, at Starbucks, wherever they may be. And for those who really up their game, I think this period in history may provide the biggest professional opportunity of your career. And I would just say, go for it. Thank you.
Richard, that was excellent. Thank you very much for a great presentation. We definitely do have a few minutes for people to ask questions. What I'll do though, while you're just pondering what you might want to ask, is just to give everyone a heads up on what's coming. So again, I just want to say definitely thank you very much, Richard, for joining us and providing such an excellent and professional level insight into ways to engage our workforce, our employees. So many great points. I think you did a really good job too at the end about connecting it up to what we're trying to focus on for the association or the sort of this community of change management professionals, because we see, at least those of us who've had a lot of discussion about this topic in the founding group, we've sort of all agreed on this principle of one of the most critically important things to effectively lead change in any organization or any situation is to do it with and through people. It's not about the techniques. It's not about the sort of the business outcomes as such, although that's obviously a very important thing in many companies, but it's about anchoring on the skills and the will and the engagement of the people who are going to be taking you into the future. So I think you did a really great job of covering that with us. So anyway, as I said, that our next session is in a month. We are meeting on the third Wednesday of every month. So if anyone's wanting to put that on their calendar, please do. Third Wednesday of the month at 4 o'clock is our repeating schedule. I'm looking forward to welcoming a friend and colleague, Kim Werlo from PNC Bank. She has been in the midst of a big enterprise change transformation program for a while now, the last couple of years really. And she's going to be sharing with us professionally some of the stories coming out of the experiences with that program and what enterprise transformation looks like from the inside. And then we know what we're doing likely for December, but I won't announce it yet. We'll hold till next month's meeting to tell you what December holds. So With that, questions, please.
Maybe I'll get us started. So, Richard, thank you very much. It was fantastic.
My pleasure.
Yeah, one of the questions we see coming out of Google was, I mean, initially, all the data of people working from home was that they were being more productive, but there's now reports starting to surface that it's starting to go the other way. What are your kind of thoughts on that? And I mean, some of the stories I've heard that obviously that ideal, I don't know where it came, whether it was Laszlo out of Humu saying, the ideal amount of time supposedly is something like 3.5 days in the office, I think, and that 1.5 or 2 at home. Is that what you also start?
Well, for one thing, I'm not terribly surprised that the productivity was very high at the beginning and it started to kind of wane off or level off a little bit. I think the novelty of it was something, and then people kind of get into a regular rhythm. I have a laboratory here that I'm able to observe every day, and then with my wife, who for all of her career has worked 9 to 5 in an office, or let's be honest, 9 to 6, 9 to 7, 9 to 8 in an office, and has commuted and spent the time and all that. She gets up early in the morning, she hits that office here in the house, she gets it done, and she's still working, like now 7:30 to 5. And she has no distractions, and she absolutely loves it. She's one of the ones who does love it. She doesn't have the commute. She doesn't have the distractions, those kinds of things. And I think at first with most people, that was really showing up in the productivity numbers. I think we have to learn to measure productivity differently now, because when I think about it, and I've worked from home for 22 years. Jeff has worked from his home he doesn't work much, but when he does work, he's worked from home. You just don't have the same structure. People will apologize if I send something out on a Sunday. They'll say, "Oh, we're so sorry we made you work on a Sunday." But I didn't work Thursday afternoon for about an hour. So it just loses that kind of structure that many people are very accustomed to. So I think we're going to see that leveling off, but I think people are going to get into a rhythm. And so that's why it is so important for organizations to continue to hold people accountable for productivity, but not necessarily for attendance, and certainly not for how many keystrokes and how often you're sitting in front of the computer, because I think that is an invalid measure of productivity. We really got to look at what is it that we want, make sure people understand those metrics and understand those goals. When they reach those goals, we reward them. When they don't, we coach them to do better.
Thanks.
As far as a 3-day, 2-day, I think every organization kind of has to find its rhythm and see what works. The 3-2 thing, a lot of that is born out of the idea that we can't have the same population in the building because of the need for social distancing. And so maybe 66% we can do that.
I'm not sure if you're capable of answering a question quickly, but we're running out of time. But I want to know, you and I were on a show, just to preface, we were on a show today, an internet show, and we were talking about culture. Can you just talk quickly about how all this change is going to affect organizational culture?
I can't do it quickly. No. Yeah. No, I will. I'll try. Yeah. Well, it's just culture is the way things work in an organization. It is the personality, the character of the organization. And this has created a major personality change. But we also, and I think Jeff would agree on this, your culture will carry you through. If you have a strong culture, it can withstand a lot of changes like this, and the organization will still be true to many of its values, much of its culture. If your culture is ill-defined, then something like this can really throw it for a loop.
Thank you. And by the way, I put in the chat box if anybody's interested, how to contact Richard and how to purchase his books. So
thank you.
Matt?
This was great. Again, thank you very much. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for those of you who were with us on the camera. It's wonderful to see people in the session, and everyone who joined. Thanks for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Again, please do visit the website pitcmp.org. And if you have questions, we really are looking for building input and engagement, and really building a true community and a network of professionals here. So, Richard, thank you very much.
Great. Glad to be a part of it. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.